Hello, and a very warm welcome to the English Story Nook. We are so glad you could join us today. Today, we're diving into a story about the power of words and the incredible strength it takes to understand our own feelings. Get ready to discover a moving story about a personal journey to find confidence and trust in one's own voice, even when it is difficult. Before we begin, if you enjoy our stories and want to support what we do, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel, the English Story Nook. If you would like to help us even more, you can consider buying us a coffee. You can find the link in the description below. Every bit of support helps us create more content for wonderful learners like you. And now to the story. His whispers could bruise. The scent of lavender and old books filled the room. A deliberate calm that felt a universe away from the storm inside Nida Mohammed. She sat opposite her therapist, Dr. Vani Omar, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. For weeks, they had skirted the edges of a particular shadow in her past, a locked door in the long hallway of her memory. Today, Dr. Omar gently turned the handle. "The recurring image you mentioned, Nida," she began, her voice soft yet firm. "The one with the heavy oak door. You said you feel a sense of dread, a coldness that's almost visceral. Shall we try to describe what's behind it?" Nida's breath hitched. It was one thing to acknowledge the door. It was another to open it. "It wasn't my door," she started, her gaze fixed on a crack in the ceramic mug. "It was my great-uncle's study. Habibur al-Sharafi. He was revered in our family, successful, charismatic, but his influence was insidious, creeping into the foundations of our home life until you couldn't tell which parts were still your own. He'd call me in there for what he termed character lessons," Nida continued, the words tasting like ash. "My parents thought it was wonderful. Habibur is taking an interest," they'd say. They couldn't see how he sought to subjugate my spirit, to make me compliant and small. His methods weren't loud or violent. They were quiet, whispers. His whispers could bruise. The first plot point arrived not with a crash, but with a quiet decision. Nida looked up, meeting Dr. Omar's steady gaze. He was a master of gaslighting. I just didn't have a word for it back then. Act 2 began as Nida stepped through that mental door, pulling the memories out from the shadows. "I was about 10 and I'd won a school prize for a short story. I was so proud. I ran to show him. He read it, his face unreadable. Then he started. 'Are you sure you wrote this, Nida? It doesn't seem like your style. A bit ambitious.' He'd dissect my achievements until they felt like failures, or worse, frauds. It was a slow, meticulous process to unravel my confidence. He'd tell me my memories of events were wrong, that I was too sensitive, that I was imagining things. The gaslighting was so constant that I genuinely started to believe I had a faulty memory, that my feelings weren't a valid response to reality. That feeling of dread you mentioned? It's a visceral reaction I still have when someone questions my recollection of an event." Dr. Omar nodded, making a small note. "It's a common tactic for abusers. By invalidating your reality, they control it. It's powerful because it's so insidious. It makes the victim question their own sanity." Nida felt a strange sense of relief. Hearing her experience described with such clinical precision was strangely comforting. He wanted to subjugate everyone, really, to be the patriarch whose word was law. My small successes were a threat to that. I remember once I corrected him on a minor historical fact at the dinner table. The silence was immediate and heavy. Later, in his study, he told me that my impertinence was a sign of a deep character flaw, one he would have to help me correct. He said it with a smile, which made it all the more terrifying. The story tumbled out, a torrent of carefully stored injustices. The midpoint was Nita's realization of the sheer scale of the manipulation. It wasn't just me, was it? He did this to my mother, too. Made her feel inadequate. That's why she never defended me. She was just as trapped. This insight didn't excuse her mother's inaction, but it framed it in a new, tragic light. The need to unravel these tangled family dynamics felt overwhelming. This process of talking, of laying it all out, Dr. Omar said gently, can be incredibly cathartic. It doesn't erase the past, but it can change its power over you. I hope so, Nita whispered, because his voice still resonates in my head. When my boss gives me a compliment, my first thought is, he's just being polite. When my partner praises me, I wait for the but. I find it so hard to accept that my feelings are legitimate, that they are enough to validate my own experiences. The second plot point was a memory of defiance. One day, he told me my painting was messy and derivative, and I just snapped. I told him he was a cruel old man. I was 12. The fallout was immense. He didn't shout. He simply looked sad, disappointed. He told my parents he was worried about my aggressive tendencies. I was the one forced to apologize. I learned that day that my truth was a weapon that would only be used against me. Act 3 began with the raw, shaking aftermath of that admission. The crisis wasn't a scream, but a flood of silent tears. Tears for the little girl who was taught her mind was an unreliable narrator. Tears for the woman who still struggled to trust her own voice. The carefully constructed dam of composure she'd maintained for years finally broke. The climax was a quiet declaration, spoken through the tears. "It wasn't my fault," she said, the words hanging in the air, fragile and powerful. "I wasn't too sensitive. I wasn't wrong. He was abusive." To finally validate her own childhood reality felt like a monumental shift. It was a truth that resonates to the very core of her being. Dr. Omar let the silence hold the weight of the moment before speaking. "No, Nita, it wasn't your fault. What you went through was real." The resolution was not an ending, but a new beginning. The session was drawing to a close. The storm inside Nita had not vanished, but it had changed. The clouds had parted just enough to let in a sliver of light. The process was painful, but she could not deny it was also cathartic. She left the office that day feeling lighter, as if she had finally set down a burden she hadn't realized she was carrying. The whispers of the past were still there, but for the first time, her own voice was beginning to sound stronger. That's the end of our story for today. It was a very powerful journey of self-discovery. We would love to know what helps you feel more confident when you speak English. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. And remember to check the description box below for some helpful resources to continue your practice. Thank you for joining us at the English Story Nook. Keep practicing, stay curious, and we look forward to seeing you in our next story. Happy learning!